Welcome back to the Tracy Take. I'm Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are doing my final mock draft in the 2024 NFL offseason, leading up to the 2024 NFL draft, which is this Thursday, April 25th. It's been a lot of fun doing these mock draft Mondays. We've been fairly consistent, I think, through every single one, maybe missed one or two, but in general, though, it's been fun to kind of see the overall progression of some of these players and also some of our mocks. So we're looking forward to kind of putting our final prediction out there. But before we do that, if you haven't already, be sure to like this video and also subscribe to the channel to get notified when new videos come out. Ryan and I will actually be going live for the first round of the NFL draft Thursday night, April 25th. So be sure to ring that bell to get notified when we do hit the air. So Ryan, let's pull up PFF here. So Bears are picking first again, and I think this has been probably the pick that's been super consistent throughout our entire mock draft season. But Caleb Williams going to Chicago, that's honestly not I think too much of a debate anymore. It's like a foregone conclusion. I think we're all just kind of waiting for this to officially happen.
Yeah, the first pick will definitely, I think, be just a formality.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. So where it does get interesting now with the second pick, and I actually have Drake May going to the Washington Commanders. Report came out that supposedly the Jaden Daniels camp was not extremely happy with their visit to the Commanders. So maybe I'm overreading it. I think maybe it's kind of mixed up. I've gone Jaden Daniels, and so for the past couple of months, and I'll go Drake May here. We will have Jaden Daniels go to the Patriots. I think these guys are interchangeable. I did think for a second of like what a potential trade back would look like with the Patriots. But once again, with a lot of these decisions, when I kind of look at teams potentially trading back, I think is that they would be extremely happy to have a certain player that's available as of that moment instead of trading back and potentially getting a similar style of player or not getting as many or having more options to pick from, which I'll kind of get into a trade back scenario here later on. But same with the Cardinals as well. Is like a lot of people have said that they could that they'll be trading back. I just say you're going to trade back, and who are you going to get outside of Marvin Harris Jr.? And so I have them just going with Marvin Harris Jr. here, one of the top prospects that we've seen in an extremely long time. And I think that same kind of sentiment goes with the Chargers as well. They could trade back, yes, but they moved on from Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and they need a receiver. And you're sitting with two great receiver prospects right here with Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze. So I have them going with Malik Neighbors. It easily could be Rome Odunze as well. And then the New York Giants here, they ended up wrapping up the top three receivers with Rome Odunze. I did think a lot harder than any of the other teams before them on a potential trade back with Minnesota here with New York. They could be a team that they do need pretty much anything and everything offensive line. You trade back to 11, you're going to have a lot of offensive linemen that's going to be available there. Talisa Fuaga, Troy Fatanu, J.C. Latham, Joe Alt will make it there. Olu will be there as well. So, but at the end of the day, I still think, once again, I value Rome Odunze more than those other players. And I think with the moves that the New York Giants have already made in the offseason, beefing up that offensive line a lot, I think that they're going to go skill position player here at number 6. Yeah. Joe Alt coming off the board here. This one is, I hope this isn't going to be one. I really hope Tennessee doesn't, or I hope they pick Joe Alt, just because it would be another instance. I don't want to have just been so tunnel vision on just like Tennessee needs a left tackle, but it just makes too much sense. It makes. I'd be curious to see who they go with if they don't go with Joe Alt. Especially too, if they go with another offensive lineman, I would not like that pick at all. I could even see a world where Titans would trade up to go and get Joe Alt, just to ensure that they have that guy. And so, I think they'll gladly give up a 4th round pick, and then maybe get like a later 5th or a later day 3 pick and like in a swap with the Chargers, so to say, potentially trade back. But the way it worked out, Joe Alt fell here. So this is where I have my only trade actually in this mock draft here. I think a lot of teams are going to stay put just because of, I think, the talent that kind of falls around to them. But I do have Minnesota trading up here, and I just kind of essentially have a pick swap. I have Vikings getting 11 and 23, and then the Falcons are giving up 8 and 43. So a trade should be accepted. There's an 80% chance. You can force it if you want. Let's see. The trade was accepted. I think in our 7-round mock draft, the trade we did was 8, 43, and 79. But I think one of the things that is potentially will help Atlanta to keep that 79th pick is the Vikings are going to be the more desperate team. And so I think the Falcons can have leverage. Because worst case scenario, if they can't come up with a deal with 60 seconds left, they'll just walk up and go take the player that they're going to be taking here at 11. So here, Minnesota trade up, get J.J. McCarthy, ensure that they're going to get the guy. I don't think the Broncos are going to trade up just because of their limited draft capital. But I also think, too, based off what I'm seeing from the Denver world, also from what Denver fans are saying on our channel, is that they actually kind of like the Bo Nix pick. So Bo Nix should very well be there at 12. And so we'll kind of have to wait and see. Maybe the Raiders will do something sneaky. But here at number 9, another potential trade back spot. This one I think could be more of a who would want to trade up to go get their guy. And I just think I look at the next 6, 7 teams. I think they're all completely content with just whoever's going to be available, just because those guys are that good. And so here at number 9, I do have them going with Dallas Turner here, edge rusher, just addressing that defensive line. Maybe they could go really stretch to get Brian Thomas Jr. Probably not. I think that they'll wait here. If they get a trade back spot, I could see them doing that, but they'll also probably get a 2nd-round pick or another 3rd-round pick because they only have 4 picks overall in their draft. But they've already kind of knocked it out of the park this whole offseason. So here, once again, this one makes pretty good sense here in my mind. Brock Bowers helping out with the offensive line, blocking just a little bit, but then you also get a skill position player as well to help out with Garrett Wilson and also Mike Williams as well. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a lot of fun with Brock Bowers here, just how he's going to be able to move him and utilize him throughout the offensive line. So here now at Atlanta, I think one of the reasons why you trade back and why it would make sense for Atlanta to want to trade back and move up from 43 to 23 is you're still able to get the defensive line guy that you want here, which I have them going with Jared Verse. It could be Jared Verse. It could be a Dallas Turner. It could be Leatu Latu, honestly. And even if we want to get maybe a little fun, wouldn't be surprised if they went defensive tackle. Grady Jarrett is getting older, and he's coming off a torn ACL. So if they wanted to maybe start to try and develop for the future, that one's more of a long shot. But here, I like this trade back, and it makes sense, I think, for both parties involved. Minnesota then gets a day 2 pick. Atlanta then bumps up into the 1st round, gets an extra 5th year of eligibility. And at that time, as you'll see in a little bit, there's going to be the top secondary players. This is going to be about the range that they fall here as well. Mm-hmm. So one thing I would notice too when doing this draft, starting at Cooper DeJean, then scroll down a little bit, I noticed the average draft position. They're all essentially about the same. And we've been saying this the entire offseason. Is like any of these guys, like Jared Verse can go 11, but he can also potentially go 22 or 23, and Cooper DeJean is ranked 8th here on the PFF ranking, but he's averaged 21. I could see him going absolutely anywhere, like on how teams value them. And that's what's going to be so crazy about Thursday night and just where teams value these guys, where some people might hate Cooper DeJean and some people might be like, we have to have this guy. Like he's going to totally change our defense. And so it's going to be fascinating to watch here. For Denver here, I'm going to be sticking with Bo Nix. I think it's almost even to – I don't think Michael Penix is going to make it to their next – well, they don't have a 2nd-round pick. I keep the Saints have their 2nd-round pick. So they're almost kind of pigeonholed themselves to where they have no quarterback to really try and build around. All the other quarterbacks, like they missed the quarterback carousel. So I'm be curious to see what other direction they go and then how their draft would pan out. Unless they think that they're going to go with Jarrett Stidham. That's the only thing I could think of, which maybe is a possibility. And this is just a wash year, and you're trying to build around. But if they're trying to win right now and also try and get the guy to develop for this year, Bo Nix, I think, is going to be the best guy. I know Michael Penix is still on the board, but I think Bo Nix would fit better in the Sean Payton offense. Mm-hmm. So here at 13, I actually have the Raiders going with Talise Fuaga. So they've Jermaine Illuminor left the Raiders in the offseason. I think here at Talise Fuaga, you get him. He's your right tackle, the starting right tackle. And so at minimum, it's good depth competition, and then you can slowly develop him. So, but here I think that he'd be the guy to go. If they don't go Talise Fuaga, they could go Troy Fautanu, which is where he goes to the Saints. He gets selected here by New Orleans. I think these two guys, I think they would both be a great fit for both these organizations here. Talise Fuaga, first off, is more of a pure right tackle, but Troy Fautanu, as you talked about, can move kind of all throughout the offensive line. So I think Fautanu could come into New Orleans, be the left or right tackle if they want. So sitting here, this one now is another one. We've been doing this a lot, and so it just kind of makes a lot of sense. But I think top corner is going to go off the board here. And it seems like the overall online football community, Quinion Mitchell is now the top corner. So it could be Cooper DeJean, it could be Nate Wiggins. Whoever the Colts value the most is going to be the corner that comes off the board here. It just makes a little bit too much sense with kind of where Indianapolis is at with their overall team needs. Seattle was a tough one. I went back and forth on a lot of players, but ended up actually going with Laiatu Latu here. I think just addressing that edge rusher position. He's proven as well throughout this offseason, then throughout his senior year, that his injury concerns shouldn't be as big of a concern. And so I do think it makes him the third edge rusher that'll come off the board. But in general, still going to a team like Seattle, who just needs to keep improving the trenches and especially in that tough NFC West. So going to take a pause here. Want to get your overall thoughts. A little bit different than my last mock draft, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this one I think is more of a predictive mock draft, where your last one you were doing something different to kind of mix it up. So
yeah,
I mean, I like all the picks so far. You have all like that big offensive contingent go in the first round. We might disagree slightly on the value of the trade with Atlanta and Minnesota, but I think we are at the point where we're like, Minnesota is desperate. It's going to be a draft day trade. I think Atlanta, like you said, like they will be more than willing to run the ticket up there with 60 seconds left on the clock for Dallas Turner or Jared Verse or whichever edge rusher or defensive player that they want, especially if one of these receivers like doesn't make it down to them. And so I think that's going to be a little bit more enticing.
And to that point, let's say hypothetically, Vikings trade up with Los Angeles Chargers or New York Giants. I am still in the camp that if Rome Odunze is there or Malik Neighbors is there at 8, that the Falcons think very hard about going with that player because they have shown a best player available mentality. And I still think receiver 2 is a need for the team. I know we got Darnell Mooney and Rondell Moore. That's more reason why I say a receiver 2 is still a need for this team. Mm-hmm. and I think you go get a guy like that with Kirk Cousins leading that offense. Yeah. But in my head, though, I just don't see that scenario. I don't see those players getting to number 8 just because I don't see those teams trading back because of how good those guys are. So that'll throw a huge wrench into the system on kind of what the Falcons will do.
Yeah. And so like we'll just have to see at that specific spot. But I've been pretty consistent with my JJ McCarthy take. I feel like I like JJ McCarthy. I think he's a first-round quarterback. I think he's being a little overvalued because he is a quarterback and he has good tools. And so like I think teams are going to be willing to like take that risk, especially a team like Minnesota that they have that left tackle. They have 2 really solid wide receivers. When TJ Hawkinson is healthy, they have a great tight end as well. And so like that is a good situation for a young quarterback like JJ McCarthy to be coming into. And so like I think teams like that will be a little bit more aggressive in going and getting a guy with traits that they can build upon. And so I think that's why JJ McCarthy is really getting all of this like top 10-ish hype.
Remember Josh Rosen. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Josh Rosen was a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I think he went 10th overall. I mean, Mitch Trubisky was the 2nd overall pick. So like, there's a big like people are very much willing to bet on traits, and I think JJ McCarthy has a lot of desirable traits. I just think when you compare him to the top 3 guys in this class, there's a big drop off in like what a true top quarterback prospect looks like, and then what a guy with developmental traits looks like. And so you're really betting on those traits with McCarthy in my eyes. But like the Bo Nix pick, I also really like so far. I believe is that 5 quarterbacks in the first round. Yeah. So are they? maybe it's the record-breaking draft with 6 go in the first round.
I don't remember. Well, we will find out.
So, but no, I mean, like everything makes sense so far. I am also, to wrap it up here with the 16th pick, I'm a big fan of Laiatu Latu. Just overall refinement. He's not the athlete that Dallas Turner and Jared Verse is, but he's the most refined edge rushing prospect of this group right now. He's also significantly the oldest, and so like he's had the most amount of time to develop. So,
Yeah.
but I really like that fit there as well. So,
Yeah.
all in all,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan so far.
I like it. I like it. All right. Hey, so let's get on with Jacksonville here. And this one is actually probably going to be a little bit unique, but I was trying to think, and I really like this player, and I think he can move. He's going to move inside as well. But I actually have him going with Graham Barton here, coming in and addressing that interior offensive line, come from Duke. Just a great football player, just in general. So I do have him actually hopping over a couple of guys. I think he's in that same camp. Talent-wise within the Olufashano and J.C. Latham as well, but since he's going to kick into guard, I think he's going to fit more of a team need here for Jacksonville. And then speaking of which, I just said one of these players' names, but I have them going. Cincinnati Bengals going with Olufashano here, just addressing that tackle position. It could easily be J.C. Latham as well, but also the sneaky potential like Byron Murphy spot also. But I feel like it's such a Bengals thing to need to be addressing the offensive line here in the draft. Keep protecting Joe Burrow. So at 19 here, I have them going with Cooper DeJean. I know they've made some moves in the secondary, but they are with older veterans. For example, Tre'Davious White, he's had past couple seasons has had some injuries. So I still think a guy like Cooper DeJean, he also seems kind of like a Rams player as well. They're going to utilize him in the special teams a lot. I think he's going to have an immediate impact from day one on the special teams at minimum. But then you can train him and keep developing him to then becoming one of the maybe standout corners in the league. So sitting here at 30, I have them going with J.C. Latham, the tackle position here. They need to address the offensive line. Typically, J.C. Latham has not been here for the Steelers, but I typically gone Jackson Powers Johnson, but I think that they'll maybe wait on center because there's some good centers later on in the draft, and they have a lot of picks here in the top 100. So I have them going with J.C. Latham here. Let me slide in a tackle. And then I've done this pick once or twice, but I think this one, the more and more I was thinking about it just because of my mentality of, like, I don't think it's a reach on a player if you think that they're not going to be there for their next pick. And Miami, they only have 2 picks in the top 100. So I actually have them going with Jatavian Sanders here, addressing the tight end position. I know they got Jonnu Smith, but he's going to be a different type of tight end, and he's going to fit that Mike McDaniel's offensive system a lot more than Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is going to be more of that like blocking tight end, kind of like how Arthur Smith utilized him, even though he did actually go out for some routes as it's still showing a little bit of youth. But very curious on how Miami will go with this draft just because they don't have that many picks and only 2 in the top 100. But sitting here now with Philadelphia, a lot of different routes they can go. I still have them going secondary here. I had them go with Tyrion Arnold. I think maybe he could even potentially slide into nickel as well and help out. But if Laiatu Latu was there and fell a little bit, I could see them going edge rusher. I can see them waiting on receiver. They have 2 picks in the second round, and there's going to be some good receivers that are there. Just a lot of different ways I think that they could go. Potentially, they could trade back. And so, one of the reasons now going to the Falcons, one of the reasons that they I think trade back here, especially with Minnesota, just makes sense. They're now kind of in that heart of the cornerbacks coming off the board here. So I have them going with Nate Wiggins. I think he would be a great complement to AJ Terrell, and also then to just that entire defensive system. And I think what they've done in the offseason so far and the way that this board has come out, I think it is going to be defensive focused here in this first round, but then they could be offensive focused then with their 2 picks in the third round of 74 and 79. So get some really good talent back there. Just the receiver room and potentially the offensive line. So sitting here at 24, Tyler Badage. Biotish, that's close. Moved on and went to the Commanders here. So actually with JPJ falling down to Dallas, it just kind of made sense. I haven't made this pick before, but just the way that it fell out, I think he's just kind of going to fit right in there. And then I sitting at Green Bay here. most of the corners have been taken off the board. So I decided to actually go with Byron Murphy here. I think he's too good a player to pass up and fall this far. Maybe they could go Tyler Nubin. Maybe they could get Kool-Aid McKinstry and kick him out to safety as well. But majority of the offensive linemen were off the board. Majority of the cornerbacks were off the board. So I actually had them go with Byron Murphy there. And then Tampa Bay, I mean, we could just pick a name out of a hat, for being completely honest, and they would go with them. Just because there's so many different things that are scenarios that they could go. The way that this board fell, I actually had them going with Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think he could be a very versatile cornerback as well. I think maybe it's a little bit too early for a linebacker. Edge rushers, I mean, maybe they could get Chop Robinson, but I don't know if that would be the right one. Even on the interior offensive lineman, I feel like it was. I mean, we could have gone Zach Frazier, but decided against it. They could address interior offensive line later on. I think a guy like Kool-Aid McKinstry here can come in and help out the secondary, the defensive side of the ball. But a lot of different routes the Buccaneers could go. Then Arizona Cardinals here. I had them going with Jersey Newton once again. Just another good player. I think that just fell too far. I know they made a lot of moves on the defensive side of the ball in the offseason, on the defensive line side of the ball. Again, Kyrus Tunga and Bilal Nichols. But I still think a guy like Jersey Newton, I think he's going to be able to come in. Jonathan Gannon's going to find a way to utilize him and have his overall effectiveness. I wouldn't be surprised if they potentially double dipped at the receiver spot, just the way that this board fell. But ended up going with defensive interior. So here with Buffalo, kind of a dream board for them. Brian Thomas sitting there, moved on from Stephon Diggs. They get to keep their 28th overall pick and then keep all of the draft picks, and they can still go get a receiver here, Brian Thomas Jr. Then 29, I didn't really like too many of the players. I mean, maybe like Mims, I think wouldn't do that great. Or it would be a developmental piece just in general. But then I don't think they'd go with A.D. Mitchell or Troy Franklin. And then if we kept scrolling down a little bit, there's maybe some other guys, like maybe they go Zach Frazier. But I ended up going with Chop Robinson. Aiden Hutchinson has brought so much attention, and then they have added a lot to the defensive line already. I think you go get a guy like Chop Robinson here in that Dan Campbell defense. And he's super athletic. He needs a little bit of kind of development still, but I feel like it would just be a good selection here. And then you would have him across from Aiden Hutchinson, who's turned into one of the best defensive ends in the league. So we'll have to kind of go and see. He is more of an outside linebacker-esque, I feel, Chop Robinson is. So maybe it would just be a little bit of a more unique style of defense. But we'll have to go and see. I kind of looking back on it, I don't know how much I love that pick, but at the same time, be curious to kind of see who they would take on this board as of right now. Maybe trade back, and maybe Carolina would come in and take a receiver. So wrapping this up here now, I have Jordan Morgan going to the Baltimore Ravens. They've lost a lot on the offensive line this offseason and actually last offseason as well, if you want to include that. So Jordan Morgan here, guy who is pretty versatile, but he'll probably kick into guard, and they need a lot of guard assistance. Then I have the Niners going with Amarius Mims. He is a guy who's freakishly huge. You've seen him play live. You actually, if I'm not mistaken, you've made comparisons to Trent Williams as well, just on his overall size.
But that was Broderick Jones last year.
Oh, Broderick Jones. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Who would Amarius Mims is bigger than Broderick Jones was. But like when he is on and healthy, he's very talented and just so physically gifted that it's just he's so hard to get around. He doesn't have the most amount of like oomph in the run game, but again, some of that I think is coaching. Some of that is I think he was playing with some injuries. So if you can get him healthy and get him right, I think that's a fantastic pick.
Yeah. And I think also too a lot less pressure because everybody kind of now knows that his scouting report is raw, needs development. But can be something crazy. And Trent Williams is still going to be there for at least a year, another 2 years. And you just go look at Amarius Smith's specs. Like you could have another lockdown left tackle, if things pan out. But last but not least, in Kansas City, I do believe that Ladd McConkey is going to be end up going here to the Chiefs. I just think just with how he runs his routes and just go look at his film, I think him and Patrick Mahomes would just hit it off amazing. Hey, we got a new award. Thank you.
I
But
don't know what that means, but
I don't know what it means either. But I think with Ladd, it would just I think he would be the best fit for Kansas City, in my opinion. But once again, I think that's just another. I think they're going to go receiver overall. So, but
yeah.
that's my mock. I'm sticking with it. So we'll have to see how right I am come Thursday night, and then compare mine to yours as well. So,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
anyways, what was your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of already went through the first half. I like the second half as well. I think with Graham Barton, he's good versatility there on the interior for Jacksonville. Olu, Cooper, J.C. Latham. I like the Jatavian Sanders pick. We actually talked about that back in like November. What would be nasty is if the Dolphins went and got this over the middle threat
Yeah,
who could get some serious yards after catch. And so that'll be really interesting to see. Another reason why I like that pick is they are outside of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They lost a lot of their receivers this offseason. And going into getting not a receiver, but another pass catcher in that group, I think would be a good way to kind of spread around some of the wealth there with
yeah,
how they do like to throw the football. So I like that fit. Terran Arnold, Nate Wiggins, I like both of those. Jackson Powers Johnson there replacing Tyler Biotish is good. But yeah, the only pick that I think like I really have an issue with, and I can still see it because I do like this player is Chop Robinson. I don't know how much of a scheme fit he would be because as far as I know, Detroit runs more of like a 4-down defensive lineman, where Chop Robinson I think is going to do his best, like with a hand in the dirt.
and,
Uh,
and that was kind of as I was
yeah,
explaining that was kind of my thought process as
yeah,
well. But at
uh,
the same time, though, I can see it working,
yeah.
or like trying to find a way to make it work.
Especially here at 29, like you're not necessarily looking. Like you're not going to get a premier edge rusher at 29. Like he's going to be more in on true pass rushing situations
Yeah,
per se. And so like maybe they do that for the first part of his career while he puts on some weight and can be more of a 3-down defensive lineman later on. Brian Thomas Jr. falling to 28, while I like have a hard time seeing it, it definitely makes sense. Or like it, I definitely could see it happen. Like it's
yeah.
not totally improbable. So I really like a lot of these picks. I think you did a pretty good job here with this predictive mock. And yeah, I mean, I'm really just excited for Thursday now just to see where all these guys go.
I know, and we've been talking about it so much now, and we're gonna have your mock coming out as well, and so we've been talking about this since middle of December. So
Oh yeah.
it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of good work. It's going to be neat to kind of watch everything come down and see how wrong we were.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because like somebody's gonna take like I don't even know. Jerson Newton's gonna go like 10th overall to the Jets. Like who knows what's really gonna happen. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, is there anything else you want to add before we close it out here?
No,
No. All
like and
right.
subscribe.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and wrap up Tyler's final mock draft here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of his final mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? And on that, we'll see you guys next time.